Come be a part of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics with your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Hear the voices of liberty speaking all across America. Doc Holliday provides thought-provoking interviews and commentary about the issues and actions that are afflicting this country and what we need to do to get America back on track. Get fired up, get inspired, get on board with Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right now.
And here we go.
Hey, once again, that is the sound of rock cracking. You've got Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. You're listening to us right here on webtalkradio.net. That's webtalkradio.net. Glad to say hi and springtime. Welcome, warm weather across the country. We've seen some beautiful weather, seen some storms. I know in the south where we broadcast this show from, we've had some a lot of rain last week, a lot of storm and some tornadoes, but I just want to say that we are here springing forward with the conservative ideas of liberty and justice for all, for freedom, and that means freedom from government tyranny. And we're here to talk about this week with a judge from the state of Pennsylvania running for the state Supreme Court. Her name is Judge Paula Patrick. We're going to get to her conversation, our interview, in just a minute. But first, let me remind you, at the end of the show, we're going to have a little clip on our crypto corner, just trying to help people get educated about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Many are afraid to understand this and think it's too complicated. It can get that way, but each week we're going to try to take a little time to help you better understand that, because it is coming. It is a part of our future. It's here today, and you need to at least know some of the terms and what's going on and why it's so important, because it is changing our world like the internet did. It's called blockchain technology. We'll do our crypto corner at the end of the show. And now, before we get into our exciting interview with a conservative African-American female judge that's in the state of Pennsylvania and running for state Supreme Court. Before we get to her talk, let me remind you of some of the stupidity. I'll just come out and say some of the stupidity that's coming out of the Biden administration. They said last week, if you raise taxes on corporations, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to cause the prices to go up for the goods or what they build or what they service. Now that is a bunch of just spewing balderdash, spewing like a volcano. I mean, it is ugly and deceitful to lie. It took Donald Trump to say, let's cut taxes and bring about a great economy. We did cut taxes for our business, for corporations. And so many times the Democrats call the corporations evil. Well, and they want to tax them. Let's just slowly tell everyone exactly what the truth is. Corporations don't pay taxes. People do. If a corporation has increased taxes, they pass it on. They have to. And when they pass on the higher, when they have to pay higher taxes, they pass it on to the people who buy their services or products. And that makes it more difficult for American companies to compete around the world. How many times has the truth been out there, been proven? And once again, we see the stupidity of those in this administration who say raising the corporation tax rate won't affect what you buy, what you need for services. It's a bunch of balderdash. Don't believe it. We've got to keep the word out for liberty and truth and freedom, and we don't have a media that helps us at all. They just won't to deceive and just neglect the truth and move on and continue the lies that are spewing. I mean, come on. Have you seen anybody in the press not give softball questions to Joe Biden? And then what did they do with Trump? It's just like they came out and just beating him over the head of every question they could, spend weeks making up a question that would be deceptive, that would be like a trap. And Biden gets asked nothing but softball questions. Come on, the American people understand that. But that's part of being conservative. That's part of standing up against entire mainstream media that's battling just to beat conservatives into the ground every day and every night. Someone who knows that, has been on the end of that, is Judge Paula Patrick, and we're going to get her on the line right now. On this week's show, we got Judge Paula Patrick, and she is a judge in the great state of Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I believe. Is that correct? Commonwealth?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Well, Judge, welcome to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We like to talk about politics. Sometimes we get into other things, but you are in an election to be on the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Don. We have in Pennsylvania, judges are elected, and we run in partisan elections. I am a Republican running for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. We have one vacancy on that court. The vacancy was created because of age. The justice has aged out, and so there is a vacancy, and I am running as a conservative candidate for that position.
Well, Judge, I'm glad you're on our show. We have an audience around the country, and I know we got some listeners in Pennsylvania, and it's just exciting to me to know that there's a conservative judge. You do happen to be African American, but that to me is a plus in the age we live in right now. So tell me a little bit about your background. You've been a judge for many years, so tell me what got you into law and what got you wanting to be a judge.
Okay, yeah, sure. I've been a judge. This is actually my 18th year on the Court of Common Pleas right here in Philadelphia. The Court of Common Pleas is what we call the trial court division here. And so I've listened to all types of cases, from criminal cases, family cases, juvenile, as well as all types of civil matters. And prior to that, I was a lawyer right here in Philadelphia. I'm originally from North Carolina, though, born and raised in North Carolina. So I am a Southerner, but, of course, even in my heart still.
Okay.
And I went to law school in Texas. And I came to Philadelphia after law school, and I only wanted to be here just for a few years and then go back down south and build a practice there. I came from a traditional two-parent home. My father actually served his country honorably. He was a soldier, and he served in the U.S. Army. And so he taught us to love and respect, of course, his country, one another, and to love our God. And the main thing that he taught us, too, was that, we don't look for handouts. We work for what we get. And he also said that you don't go to college to get a job, you go to create your own. So when I left law school at 25 years old, I came to Philadelphia. I knew one person, and I actually opened up a law office. I built a pretty successful practice, from the ground up for almost 10 years. And then I ran for judge and was elected in 2003.
Well, that in a nutshell is an amazing story right there. And what I want to do, of course, the thing about Philadelphia, and I've been there, and I know many people in my audience probably have been, and that's where the Constitution Center is for the U.S. Constitution.
Yes.
And it just seems like so much happened in the last election, the presidential election, and it happened in the state of Pennsylvania. Some things that are just still, I know there's not answers for, but since you were on the ground, I know my listeners would like to just get your wisdom and discernment on what happened in some of the cases. You're a judge there in Pennsylvania. One thing is, there was, out of all the lawsuits filed in Pennsylvania, everything was dismissed. There was never ever any evidence shown in the presidential election that I'm aware of that happened in Pennsylvania. Is that true, that no evidence was ever shown? Everything was just tossed out by the judges in Pennsylvania?
Well, actually, what happened, they didn't grant hearings, and that's what Justice Clarence Thomas talked about in his dissent. when he said that, these matters really deserve to have a hearing because of the complexity of it, the uncertainty of it, and, of course, we have future elections. And so we needed some guidance from the court to make sure that we can be in play with what is happening. And so Justice Clarence Thomas said that when that doesn't happen, we don't give hearings to these cases. He says that it begins to undermine people's confidence in our system of justice. And I think he's absolutely correct. I can't say more about that because that matter could probably come back before the court. Okay. And as a judge, I'm bound by rules that I can't speak about things that would have to come before the court. But what I can say is that Justice Clarence Thomas, I believe, was absolutely correct in his dissent. The other thing I think is important is that, as a judge here in Philadelphia, I've served for many years in the elections court. In fact, in 2015, I was appointed city election commissioner to oversee the city's election. Mm-hmm. And I say that to say this, that not one justice on our Pennsylvania Supreme Court has ever served one day in elections court. And I think experience matters. And so, I come highly recommended to that court by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. I have adjudicated more than 20,000 cases in my career. I have written more than 600 opinions to our 3 appellate courts. And so I come ready to work, hit the ground running from day one. And the other thing is that I am a conservative black woman in Philadelphia, one of the most liberal jurisdictions on the planet.
I know. That just surprised me.
I'm not afraid.
you can't be. And speaking of that, and again, Judge, anything I ask you that, you can't participate in or answer because of being a judge, let me know. But I was really concerned about during the election where they said Republican observers were not allowed in Philadelphia, in many of the Philadelphia precincts. And that seems like it's been going on election after election. Maybe I'm wrong. You were there. You said election court 2015. So what happened to observers not being allowed in Philadelphia elections in some places?
I have no idea. I wasn't, the judge that made that ruling, but the ruling came down, and it's unfortunate that it came down the way it did. I think we've seen some of the things that have come out of our Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which goes back to why I'm running. I think that our courts have been turning left for a long time, and the most important thing that I see is that I see this liberal bullying of our judiciary, and I believe that it has to stop. And I believe that we need people of courage, people of experience, and people that have the conservative values as looking at our rule of law and our constitutions as valid foundations in our society, and are willing to uphold and to defend those things. That's why I'm running for our Pennsylvania Supreme Court.
Well, Judge, that's one of the things that some of our listeners have brought to me, and I've asked others about, but being right there in Pennsylvania, and talking about what Supreme Court Justice Thomas had mentioned about never granted hearings of what has happened. But does that mean because the U.S. Supreme Court, you're sitting there nearby the Center on the Constitution, so I'm asking this question because the U.S. Supreme Court would not hear anything, does that mean now that executive members, like the governor and executive committee, can they make changes to the law? It says the U.S. Constitution says only the state legislators make changes to laws about election. And since the Supreme Court would not hear a case and the executive members made changes, does that mean across the nation now, every executive member, state secretary of state or governor, they have the ability to change election laws because the U.S. the U.S. Supreme Court failed to hear anything? Is that new powers that the states have now?
Well, I can't say that, but what I can say is that it's crucial that we follow the law in this country. It's crucial that our constitutions are obeyed and upheld. It's crucial that our rule of law stands firm in every jurisdiction, not just here in Pennsylvania, but all over. Because as you can see, this does create a system of confusion, a system of uncertainty as to what's happening. That's why we need to make sure that we put the right people in these courts that understand our rule of law.
And you hit the nail on the head when you say when don't hear cases, then you got confusion and uncertainty, and that's not good for business. It's not good for the people who go vote. They want their votes count, and that is something that I'm glad to hear you are running for the state Supreme Court. And not being in Pennsylvania, I don't realize who all was on the state Supreme Court, but the rulings were not very conservative. I'll put it that way. It doesn't seem like. Wait just a minute, Judge, before you answer that. Just keep that answer right on the tip of your tongue, because I looked at the clock and it's time to remind everybody you're listening to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right here on webtalkradio.net. We're talking to Judge Paula Patrick. She is running for the state Supreme Court position in the state of Pennsylvania. So she's enlightening us on some of the things in Pennsylvania that affect us around the country. And so we will continue our conversation in just a minute, but let me remind everybody we do have a book called Bedrock Truths. You can get that book by going to www.docholliday.org. That's Doc Holliday with 2 L's and holiday.org. And you can order the book. Bedrock Truths is written by Dr. Ed Holliday, Dr. Alveda King, and Dr. Alex McFarland. So please check that out, and we'll be glad to get that book out to you. Now, Judge Paula, please, we were saying it seemed like the Supreme Court is not a conservative type court there in Pennsylvania. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And
that's correct. And we have our court, we have 7 justices, 5 of which are Democrat, 2 of which are Republican, and one of the Republicans is aging out, so that creates the vacancy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I go across the Commonwealth, and I'm campaigning. Our election here, primary election, is May 18th. So I would just tell everyone, if you have family or friends here in Pennsylvania, it's a statewide race. Anyone in the state can vote for me. Go to votepaulapatrick.com and look for information about me. But one of the things that I can tell you is that, you know, in running this race, going across this Commonwealth, I have, you know, questions from so many people. What do we do? What do we do? Do we really vote now? You know, because people are losing, you know, faith even in our system of voting.
Absolutely.
And so and the integrity of voting. And so, and then, of course, there are other people that believe that their votes were suppressed. So, you know, voting is a major issue. And I tell people this when I go across the Commonwealth. I'm like, listen, you can't now back down from the process now. You can't stop now. You got to continue. As a matter of fact, more should come out and vote. More should be involved here. Because even in your personal life, when you have a defeat or a setback, you don't just stop. No, you continue, and you get up every day continuing to overcome. We have to do the same thing, because if we stop voting as a conservative bloc, if we stop doing it, then, of course, the other side, you know, wins, and we can't have that. We have to be willing to put up the fight, and that's why we need people of courage that are willing to stand in the wake of opposition and the face of opposition, that will stand firm on our rule of law. That's why I'm running. Judge Paula Patrick. You can go to votepaulapatrick.com to find out more information about me.
Well, Judge Patrick, it sounds like your mom and dad taught you about perseverance. It sounds like you know how to stand firm against even a lot of opposition. And if there's 5 Democrats on the state Supreme Court, it'll take somebody with some strong background, and also being able to influence others to see what the truth is, especially right there in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. And that's why, you know, I know that I am the best person for that job, is because of my own background and my experience and how I view the law and why the law is so important. Listen, I believe that we need judges that are passionate about our rule of law. Some people, it's just a job for them, and they don't really care, or they have chosen to be activists about it. And one of the things as a judge, you cease and desist to be an advocate, and your job is to render justice. Your job is to find the truth. Your job is to make sure that all the facts and the evidence and the law applies, and you render a decision. That's what I've done for 18 years in Philadelphia. That's what I want to do on the court, on the Supreme Court here in Pennsylvania. And it's important that we get out and vote as Republicans, as conservatives. And once again, you can find me even on Facebook at Judge Paula Patrick, and votepaulapatrick.com.
Well, Judge Patrick, that sounds, again, it's refreshing to hear your strong stance, which is really just common sense. And I think most voters, they're drawn to common sense values. And that's one of the things that we seem to have missing in a lot of some of the judges and elections. And when you say, again, that there's 5 Democrats on that state Supreme Court, it becomes very important who is on there with them. And so I do wish you success and getting across the state. Now, you've been in Philadelphia. I know Pennsylvania's a big state, going all the way from Pennsylvania across to Pittsburgh. So what's your game plan as far as getting across the state? How do you get your name out across the state?
Well, I do shows like this, of course. I also we're working on a digital media plan. We're also, I go to as many places as I can, connecting with a lot of what we call state committee people, what we call with the people that are the public in different organizations and groups, conservative groups, things like that. And we have been stomping across this state. There are 67 counties in this state, and I can tell you we are seeking to get to as many of them as possible between now and the primary election, which is May 18th. And so far, I have visited at least 20 of the counties, being able to talk with people and meet with people and letting people know about getting my name out. We do have a media presence, votepaulapatrick.com, as well as
right.
Facebook at Judge Paula Patrick, as well as Twitter at Judge Patrick PA. So, these are avenues that we're using to get our name out, commercials and things like that. So we continue to let people know. And all of those listen to your show. If you have any family or friends that are in Pennsylvania, regardless of where, they can vote for me. My name is Paula Patrick, and I'm the first name on the Republican ballot.
And Judge Paula, one of the things that we've had on our program over the years, many African-American conservatives, and it seems like a voice that's suppressed in the mainstream media. It seems like the mainstream media does not want people to know that they are conservative African Americans. They're proud to be black, proud to be conservative. So it's refreshing to have you on the show. One thing I'd say, you're very much like a pioneer of the 21st century. I believe the future is black conservatives are being recognized as an important force in the Republican Party, important force in our nation. So I'd love to see you move forward and get the recognition you deserve, because I know it's the perseverance that your mom and dad taught you, your parents taught you, and what you grew up in to move forward. And I really believe you'll be one, if get the state Supreme Court, and you'll be one of the voices that our nation needs to hear. Even now, before you get to the Supreme Court, you're a voice our nation needs to hear. So I appreciate you being on the show. Is there anything that what causes you, to want to be a judge, to want fairness, to want justice, and to serve your community and your state and your country? What is it that moves you forward? What is it that drives you? Does something happen in the past? Is it something that you just want to seek to get justice for? What drives you, Judge Paula?
Well, you know what? That's an interesting question and an interesting story. That I can tell you about that.
Okay.
My journey, if you will, started very, very early in my life, and it started when I was actually in the first grade.
Oh, really?
So I'll tell you, and I'll tell you that I learned how to read. My mom taught me to read. I was 3 years old. And I couldn't go to kindergarten because they made up some excuse that why I couldn't go or whatever, although I went to public schools. And so I ended up having to go to first grade. And going to first grade, I was 6 years old. So by the time I was 6, I had been reading for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I was a very, very good reader. And so I remember that my teacher, she would, when we had reading time, we would put our chairs and we would sit in a circle and we would take turns reading. So one day it was my turn to read, and I was so excited because, of course, I could read. And as I'm reading, and I'm reading pretty well, my teacher stops me, and she says, "Who taught you how to read?" Well, I told her it was my mother. And she protested and asked me again, "Who taught you how to read?" Well, I said it was my mother. So then she took me, and she sat me under the table.
Oh, me.
Yes. So I go home, and I tell my mom what happened to me. My mom comes to the school the next day. She and the teacher, they have words. But sure enough, from that day and for the rest of the school year in first grade, every time the students would read, she would sit me under the table that I couldn't read. And what I would do under the tables, I would hear how far they would read, and I would go home and read that much further. And I tell you that story because I never forgot what it felt like to be mistreated. And I really devoted my life to ensuring that people would not have to feel the pain of injustice as I did at 6 years old. And so it was at that point that I began to read books of, like, great civil rights leaders, even Thurgood Marshall, and I would read the stories of, like, the slaves, Harriet Tubman, and I would see all these things that they overcame and how they had such great problems to overcome, and they were able to do it. And it inspired me to really pursue, justice and pursue a career in law. And that's how I really got started. And I have always hated injustice from a child. And so I believe that I was created to come against it. They always say what you hate is what you were created to come against. And I believe that. And so I just have a passion for the rule of law. I have a passion for justice because I really hate it.
Well, Judge Paula, you have been an amazing guest on our show. I know our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing this, and hopefully the contacting their friends and relatives in Pennsylvania and our listeners in Pennsylvania. I want them to hear this and tell others about the show, because your voice needs to be out there. It needs to be out there, and I hope you have good luck in the election on May 18th, and hope we'll get you back on our show, and you can tell us what it's like to be on the state Supreme Court. That's what I'd love, love to hear. Okay.
I'd love to come back. Yes, well, thank you so much. And remember, vote PaulaPatrick.com. You can follow me on Facebook, like me on Facebook at Judge Paula Patrick. You can go there if you want to donate, if you want to, sign up for volunteer, you can do that. Thank you so much for having me.
And that's Judge Paula Patrick. Be sure to tell your friends and neighbors and relatives who may live in the state of Pennsylvania to check out Judge Paula and what she believes in. And we need a conservative judge. It'd be great to have a conservative judge on the court that people listen to in the state of Pennsylvania. And our listeners in Pennsylvania, please check out Judge Paula Patrick. Tell people about this show and send a link to them. And now it's time for a Crypto Corner. And for those who may not know, we've tried to just bring out some overall big strategy, not little strategy, not telling anybody to do anything like go buy Bitcoin and invest in it. We're not telling anybody how to invest or what to invest. We're just saying you ought to know. Just like a couple of weeks ago, we had Brock Pierce on, and we had an entire show dedicated to finding out more about blockchain technology and Bitcoin and what they call altcoins. And he suggested you go out and buy $10 worth of Bitcoin just to find out how you do it and how what the process you go to. You can't just go to the store and say, I want to buy some Bitcoin. It does take some computers and knowing what the buttons to push. So you can Google that, how to buy Bitcoin. But we do, with our Crypto Corner, just want people to understand we have a new a part of our whole economy. We can call it blockchain technology, but it's changing the way we do business. It's changing banking and finance. It's changing many industries. Just like they can use the blockchain technology to tag a fish, knowing where it came from, every step of the way process to your table. They got technology that'll tag that, explain that, tell everybody where it's been, where you can look and know everywhere that fish has been, where it's caught. Just things like that we've never had a way to keep up with so much information, but it can be put on this blockchain, and it cannot be hacked. It cannot be, when I say it cannot be hacked, the information, once it's on the blockchain, cannot be changed. There's information places that can be hacked, and wallets can be hacked, and the computers can be hacked, but this information, once it's on the blockchain, it's there. Nobody can remove it. And so that's why it's a system of trust. Now we go back to better understand what you need to know is that it is affecting your banking. It's affecting the stock market. It's affecting this thing called cryptocurrencies, what people are investing in. Some of them are going crazy. And again, on our website right there, there's one. It's still a small one, smaller. It's not the biggest altcoin, but that's a coin. It's not Bitcoin. It's called an altcoin, and Bitcoin's the first. it came out around 2010 or 9, right after the Great Recession. Someone that we don't even know who it is just said this money, central banks controlling it. It shouldn't be that way. And so whoever it was, him or her, they set up this system, and it has really proven the technology is blockchain technology. It's like a ledger system where several computers will agree that this is the information that needs to be locked in, and that's the basis of it. But what you need to know is each week we'll go a little bit into a crypto corner, and like I said, if you want to see a altcoin and look it up and on the internet and see some of the things it does and the community that surrounds it, check out Harmony. I got a link to it right there on our webpage of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics on our webpage. Look that up, and that's one that you can check into. And there's thousands actually, but that's one of the altcoins that I've been following, and I believe it's going to keep moving up in the world because it has such technology. So I just want people to better understand what is changing in our world, not to fear that, but we got to understand what it is. And so many in the conservative community don't understand it as well as a lot of those who are on the liberal side in Silicon Valley that makes a lot of this. They put in a lot of money that they're part of the reason why Joe Biden is the president of the United States, not Donald Trump right now. So I'll just say it's important to understand what's going on so we don't just give all the space to the liberals and to the socialists and to the Marxists and to even the revolutionaries that want to tear this country down and give it over to Russia and China and Putin and President Xi of China. Just they are licking their chops right now, looking at the national debt of the United States. Just we'll have to spend a show sometime talking about that and what's going on. And cryptocurrency can play a big part. And one of the things Brock Pierce said, we have to stay on top of the technology because China's already ahead of us. But we've got to stay on top of technology and not let them advance further than we do. So that's our Crypto Corner. Great show with Judge Paula Patrick. If you want to know more about her, you can check her website out. And she gave that earlier. And I do want to say on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, each week we'll try to touch base on that just to give you a little information that you can go out and do something with. Now, Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics is over this week. Look forward to next week, and we will dig into more, especially some of the spending that's going on, like helicopter money is what they're calling it. We'll see. We'll talk about that next week. God bless you. See you then.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember to listen again next week for another edition of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You can order Ed's new book, Bedrock Truths, by clicking on the book cover right in front of you on the screen, or visit DocHolliday.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.